Today's video is dedicated to FEMA's alarming forecasts about food shortages in the year 2025, based on a deep analysis of recent data and expert opinions. We will consider the main reasons, potential consequences, and necessary steps to prepare for these challenges. The first reason is economic instability. It significantly affects global food security, mainly due to rapid inflation and constant disruptions in supply chains. According to the World Bank, the consequences of the coronavirus pandemic and the ongoing geopolitical conflict, particularly the war in Ukraine, have led to a sharp rise in inflation. More than 60% of countries are currently facing food price inflation above 5%, exacerbating global food security issues. The economic consequences of the pandemic led to a significant increase in production costs, including transportation and labor, which are passed on to consumers in the form of higher food prices. These increased costs are not a temporary phenomenon and are expected to continue rising until economies stabilize. The war in Ukraine has further exacerbated this problem, as Ukraine and Russia are key exporters of grain and fertilizers. The conflict disrupted these export flows, leading to shortages and rising prices globally. Countries heavily reliant on these imports face acute difficulties in maintaining their food supply chains. The issue of fertilizer supply is particularly acute, leading to reduced yields and rising prices for staple goods like wheat and corn. Ongoing logistics issues also play a significant role in supply chain disruptions. According to reports from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, these disruptions lead to sporadic shortages in stores. Logistical problems are diverse and include traffic jams, congestion in ports, and a shortage of labor in critical sectors such as freight and warehousing. These disruptions hinder the smooth distribution of goods, causing local shortages and increasing prices for basic food products. Additionally, the global economic downturn has reduced the purchasing power of the population. Many countries are experiencing recessionary pressure, and consumers' ability to purchase essential goods, including food, has decreased. This economic tension is particularly felt in low-income countries that are already facing high debts and limited financial means to respond to these shocks. Trade policies and restrictions have further complicated the situation. Several countries have imposed bans on the export of key agricultural products to protect their domestic food supplies, leading to reduced availability and rising prices in the global market. This created a competitive environment where countries compete for limited resources, further driving up prices. Experts from the World Bank and other financial institutions believe that without significant political interventions and international cooperation, these trends may continue. The food situation leads to even more serious food shortages. A multifaceted approach is needed to address economic instability, including stabilizing inflation, improving logistics infrastructure, and ensuring that trade policy supports rather than hinders global food security. The second factor is geopolitical conflicts. They significantly disrupt global food production and distribution, especially when they occur in key agricultural regions. For example, the war in Ukraine has seriously affected the global market for wheat and sunflower oil. Ukraine, being a major exporter of these goods, faced a sharp decline in agricultural production due to ongoing hostilities, which directly affected global food security. The conflict led not only to a decrease in yield, but also to significant logistical problems hindering the delivery of these goods to international markets. Economic sanctions and trade restrictions imposed on countries involved in conflicts further exacerbate the global food chain. Sanctions against Russia have limited its ability to export agricultural products and fertilizers, which are crucial for global food production. This has led to rising prices and decreased availability of these essential goods worldwide. Such sanctions disrupt the normal flow of trade, creating shortages that raise prices and exacerbate food instability in dependent regions. Conflicts also lead to the destruction of agricultural infrastructure and the displacement of farming communities. In war-torn countries like Syria and Yemen, local agriculture has been devastated, leading to long-term food instability. Fields remain uncultivated, irrigation systems damaged, and storage facilities destroyed. This not only reduces current food supplies, but also complicates the future recovery of agriculture and production capabilities. Furthermore, geopolitical tensions can lead to speculative trading and stockpiling on global markets as traders anticipate further disruptions. This causes them to start hoarding essential goods, which in turn raises prices and exacerbates shortages. This speculative behavior creates an artificial shortage, making food inaccessible to many people. Humanitarian access to conflict zones is often severely restricted, complicating efforts to deliver food and essential goods to those affected. Humanitarian organizations face serious obstacles such as blockades and security threats that hinder the movement of aid, leaving millions without access to essential food, increasing levels of malnutrition and hunger. International reactions typically include emergency food aid and economic support packages, but these measures are often complicated by the complexities of the geopolitical situation and the need for coordinated international efforts. Long-term solutions require diplomatic interventions to resolve conflicts, restore infrastructure, and support sustainable agricultural practices in affected regions. The interconnection between war, economic sanctions, and trade restrictions creates an unstable food situation. A comprehensive approach is required to ensure global food security, which includes both immediate humanitarian aid and long-term development strategies aimed at restoring and stabilizing food production and distribution systems. The economic recession has a profound impact on global food security. The overall economic decline reduces purchasing power, making food less accessible to millions of people. As the economy shrinks, people and families have less disposable income, leading to a decrease in demand for various goods and services, including food. This decrease in demand may lead to reduced agricultural production as farmers and producers cut back to avoid surpluses, which in turn exacerbates food shortages. Countries facing recessionary trends are experiencing significant difficulties in maintaining stable food supply chains. Economic downturns often lead to reduced investments in infrastructure and logistics, which are critical for the effective distribution of food. Delays and inefficiencies in transport and storage increase product spoilage and reduce the availability of fresh foods, exacerbating food security issues. Moreover, economic instability can lead to currency devaluation, increasing the cost of imported goods, including food and agricultural resources. The debt crisis in low-income countries exacerbates these issues. The high level of national debt limits these countries' ability to import food and agricultural resources such as seeds, fertilizers, and machinery, which are necessary to maintain agricultural productivity. Since the obligations to repay debt take a significant part of national budgets, financial flexibility to address food shortages or invest in agriculture decreases. This situation often forces countries to rely on international aid and loans, which may impose conditions that worsen their economic situation. Global economic policy and market fluctuations also play a critical role. For example, protective tariffs and trade barriers can restrict the flow of food and agricultural products, leading to regional shortages and rising prices. In times of recession, countries may implement measures to protect their domestic markets, inadvertently causing negative consequences for global food supply chains. The interconnectedness of global markets means that an economic downturn in one region can have ripple effects worldwide. For example, a decline in economic activity in major consumer markets like the United States and Europe can lead to a decrease in demand for exports from developing countries, reducing their income and ability to acquire essential food products. This creates a vicious cycle where economic recession and food security reinforce each other, leading to prolonged periods of hardship for affected populations. The increase in food insecurity is a critical issue. According to a global report by the Food and Agriculture Organization, in 2022, about 258 million people suffered from severe food shortages. Crises related to food security are becoming increasingly alarming. Projections suggest that if current trends continue, this number could significantly increase, potentially affecting up to 300 million people by the year 2025. This growth is caused by many factors, including economic instability, climate change, and geopolitical conflicts. Disruptions in food production and distribution combined with rising prices exacerbate the vulnerability of already at-risk population groups. Economic inequality plays a significant role in this situation. Low-income countries that heavily depend on food imports are particularly vulnerable to food instability due to their limited economic resilience and greater susceptibility to price fluctuations. The World Bank emphasizes that these countries lack sufficient financial and infrastructural resources to effectively cope with disruptions in the food supply chain. As a result, any disruption caused by conflicts, climate events, or economic downturns hits these nations particularly hard, leading to severe food shortages and rising levels of malnutrition. In these low-income countries, the lack of reliable social guarantees and limited government resources only exacerbates the problem. With high levels of debt and economic instability, these states often prioritize short-term economic goals over long-term strategies for ensuring food security. Such a short-term approach leaves them unprepared for future crises, creating a vicious cycle of vulnerability and dependence on international aid. The projected consequences of growing food instability include not only an increase in the number of people facing hunger, but also broader socio-economic repercussions. Widespread food instability may lead to increased migration as people seek better living conditions. This movement can place a strain on the resources of host communities, potentially leading to social tensions and conflicts. Moreover, prolonged food instability can cause long-term developmental delays, particularly affecting children's health and education, thereby undermining future economic growth and stability. Comprehensive strategies are needed to address these issues, including improving local food production, strengthening supply chains, and enhancing economic resilience. International cooperation and support are crucial for providing the necessary resources and knowledge to create sustainable food systems in vulnerable regions. Efforts must also be directed towards reducing economic inequality and ensuring that low-income countries have the ability to develop reliable and self-sufficient food security strategies. Experts believe that the World Bank emphasizes the significant impact of inflation and supply chain disruptions on global food security. After global economic upheavals, countries faced rising food prices, which in some regions exceeded 5%. This inflation significantly reduces purchasing power, making essential food items unaffordable for millions. Supply chain disruptions further exacerbate these issues, hindering the efficient transportation and distribution of products. The World Bank emphasizes the need for international cooperation to address economic problems and stabilize food markets. The World Food Program highlights the worsening impact of conflicts and economic instability on food security. In conflict zones, agricultural production often halts, infrastructure is destroyed, and the population is forced to leave their homes, leading to severe food shortages. The VPP calls for immediate humanitarian aid to meet the urgent needs of the affected and for the implementation of long-term strategies for the recovery and stabilization of food systems. Without stable international support, the WFP warns that millions of people may face severe food shortages. Experts from various fields emphasize that economic inequality exacerbates the effects of food scarcity, especially in low-income countries. These states, which heavily depend on food imports, are the most vulnerable due to limited economic resilience and greater exposure to price fluctuations. The World Bank indicates that these countries are experiencing the greatest impact, as they lack financial and infrastructural capabilities to effectively mitigate food supply disruptions. Moreover, it is noted that the ongoing economic recession has further reduced the purchasing power of the population, especially in low-income regions. The decline in economic activity led to a decrease in demand for exports from developing countries, reducing their income and ability to purchase necessary food products. The interconnected structure of global markets means that economic downturns in one area can have widespread consequences, exacerbating food instability in other regions. Preparation and mitigation strategies, such as stockpiling essential goods, play a key role in ensuring personal readiness. It is recommended to gather non-perishable items like canned goods, dried beans, and grains. These products have a long shelf life and can support the household during food shortages. It is also wise to store these products in a cool, dry place to extend their shelf life. Along with creating reserves, one should consider home gardening. Growing your own fruits and vegetables can provide a stable supply of fresh produce, reducing dependence on external sources. Home gardening not only ensures food security but also promotes healthier eating by providing access to fresh organic produce. Supporting local agriculture is crucial for enhancing community resilience. Investing in local agricultural initiatives helps ensure stable local food supply and supports the local economy. This may include shopping at farmers markets, participating in community-supported agriculture programs, or actively supporting local small farmers. Strengthening local food systems can mitigate the effects of global supply disruptions and economic instability. Supporting economic stability is another important strategy. Policies aimed at stabilizing the economy must be maintained. Reducing inflation and ensuring economic stability can help address one of the main causes of food shortages by guaranteeing affordable prices for products and the functioning of supply chains. This includes support for monetary policy that promotes inflation control and fiscal policy that supports economic growth and stability on a global level. increased international aid and cooperation are needed. We need to advocate for more active international cooperation to provide assistance to vulnerable populations and stabilize global food supplies. This may include support for international organizations engaged in food aid and collaboration with global partners to address the root causes of food instability, such as conflicts and economic instability. The promotion of sustainable agricultural practices is also critically important. Sustainable farming methods, such as crop rotation, minimal soil tillage, and organic farming, can improve soil health, increase resilience to climate change, and ensure long-term food security. Encouraging the adoption of these practices will help agricultural systems withstand economic shocks and environmental changes, ensuring a stable food supply for the future.